Hello, my name is Rachelle Ray. I am the co-founder of Proposal Industry Experts and the founder of RMR Consulting. I was also the host of the Proposal Do's and Don'ts webinar with Open Asset, and we got so many amazing questions following that webinar that I am here to answer a few of them in a follow-up video post. So let's dive straight into it, shall we? Our first question is, what is your opinion on headshots on resumes or elsewhere in a proposal? If they aren't formatted the same way or every person does not have photos, should you include them? I have been writing proposals for over 15 years, and in that time, I've realized that there are just some things that we cannot stress over, and headshots is one of them because we will very rarely have picture perfect uniformity for the entire team, especially when you start working with significant partner teams or sub-consultants. They're just never going to match, right? And so I have a few creative workarounds for this. Number one, if I have photos for some team members but not others, I try to use a flexible layout for the resume format to distract from the fact that some of them have headshots and some of them don't. I like a 3-column format where one column is a kind of sidebar that has credentials, education information, registration, things like that. And I put the photo there. And when there's no photo, it's not quite as distracting because there's other information available. Another option is to only include photos of your key team members, right? So your project manager, your technical lead, a superintendent, project executive. There's usually like 3 to 5 team members, right, who are core to everything and can be featured and profiled and highlighted. And then everyone else just doesn't get headshots. They are still important, but they don't need their smiling faces in your proposal. Number 3, I sometimes source headshots from company websites, from LinkedIn. I have found headshots in like business journal articles profiling someone on the move. Sometimes you have to get creative. If you really need those headshots, you might be able to find them online. And your last option is if you're really stuck, there's always a new option of using an AI tool to whip up a professional looking headshot from a non-professional photo. So if someone sends you a photo on the fly, I know I get these a lot from my construction personnel. They're out in the field or on site, they just snap a selfie. You can run it through an AI tool and make it look a little more professional and match a little bit better to the rest of the proposal. At the end of the day, though, whether or not you include a headshot in your proposal is not going to make or break. It's not going to decide if you win or lose, right? Some clients do like to put a face to the name on the team and see who they're going to work with. Others couldn't care less. And if you think about it, how often do you include your photo on your resume when you're applying for a job? I bet the majority of you don't. And here you are being hired for your skills and experience, which is exactly what we're trying to do for our team and our proposal. Our next question is, when is it appropriate to use testimonials from past clients? Should we only use them if it's from a client in the same market sector? I love using testimonials from clients wherever I can in a proposal because they are like gold for showing off your team's expertise and success, right? I like sprinkling client quotes throughout proposals to really bring our achievements to life. And it really, to me, doesn't matter if that client testimonial comes from the same sector or not, if I'm using a pull quote. Because what's important is the relevance of that quote. And I'll give you a specific example. If I am writing about our cost control methodology and how good we are at keeping projects on budget, and I have a quote from a client singing our praises about how we did keep a project on budget or we value engineered it and it was able to happen that way or something dealing with cost, I'm going to pair that quote with my narrative on cost control. And I don't care if I'm putting together a proposal from a school and the client quote is from a hospital director, right? Because what matters is that we're good at cost control and I'm talking about cost control. So that's how I get around that. It's kind of a little trick for weaving in testimonials from across your firm and all of the experience you have without drawing attention to the fact that maybe that client wasn't talking specifically about the team you're proposing. They're kind of just talking about the firm as a whole. When it comes to full-on letters of recommendation, if you are including those, they give a little bit more context. And so I do try to keep those within the market sector. That way there's more of an apples to apples comparison, right? The exception to that is if one of those letters of recommendation is specifically talking about a person. I get sometimes that really sing the praises of a project manager. And for me, because they're talking about a person who is probably performing as well for a hospital project as they would for an education project, I'll include those because it makes sense. It's all about that relevance. Our next question is, how do you maintain the quality of proposals during the busy seasons? Sometimes I find the quality of my work starts to slip when I'm working on too many RFQs. I feel this very deeply as a marketing professional. Maintaining quality during busy seasons can be a huge challenge, but there are some things you can do to maintain quality and, more importantly, to protect yourself from burnout. So number one is evaluate the urgency and importance of every single RFQ. Prioritize those with tight deadlines and those with a high potential value. These are the ones that you have a really good chance of winning and are going to have a higher return on investment, right? You're not going to spend a ton of time on a design fee of $5,000 when you have a really good chance at a design fee of like $500,000, right? Employ a go, no-go and cut any RFQ that you're on the fence about, especially if you are overloaded and at capacity. This is not the time to be reaching for the stars. If you don't have the resources to put together a quality proposal and it's a long shot, it's not worth the risk of submitting a subpar response across the board. Pick the ones that you can do a really good job on and do a really good job on those. You're going to need to work with your team on this, right? Leadership as well, to set realistic expectations. And this might require some really tough conversations, and I understand that. But you need to be honest about the resources that you have available and your team's bandwidth. If you can't deliver on everything, then you'll either need to negotiate for additional resources or compromise on which tasks to prioritize. You do not ever have to accept the idea that you'll just have to figure it out, or you need to get creative to make this all happen. If that's what's being asked of you, then the priorities are misaligned. If possible, if this does happen, delegate tasks. If you are at capacity and your team absolutely has to have one more RFQ, then see if a team member can take more of the lead on it. This might be a technical team member. It might be the project manager or an architect, an engineer, whoever it is. Maybe they can write more of the content or coordinate with the consultant team for you while you're focusing on other priorities. See if they can take some of the work off of your plate. Having standardized processes can also help with maintaining quality in a couple of ways here, right? First, having a streamlined process reduces the likelihood of errors and ensures consistency, so higher quality. And second, having a dedicated process for go, no-go decisions helps prevent others from cheating the system to slip more RFQs into the pipeline. Finally, pull in external help if you can. This is exactly what consultants are for, and you are allowed to lean on them when things get crazy. Start having these conversations in advance with leadership so that they are prepared to bring someone on and comfortable with bringing someone on before you're in the fire of busy season. Next question is, the occasions when we're able to get feedback from lost pursuits are few and far between. Any tips for getting feedback more consistently from lost opportunities? Ooh. Getting feedback from lost pursuits can be absolutely invaluable for refining your approach and improving your future proposals. But yes, it is very tricky to get that feedback. Clients are busy and requesting a debrief can feel like a burden to them and one that they are happy to pass off or ignore completely. I don't have a magic answer, but I do have a few suggestions for getting more consistent feedback that have worked for me. Number one is to build relationships. Fostering strong relationships with the clients and stakeholders involved in the proposal process will make it so much easier for you to request feedback after a loss. They're going to be familiar with you, they're going to know you. And when you have that relationship where you actually know someone, you want to please them, you want to make them happy, you want to work with them, right? Even if you don't win the project, you can maintain positive relationships that can lead to valuable insights. And as a marketer, maybe you don't feel like you have access to someone where you can build a relationship with them, right? This is kind of business development's job, or it is your seller doer job, your architect, your engineer, whoever it is. You can, however, still be building relationships with the procurement team. Look for opportunities to engage with them. Maybe they had to coordinate responses to 50 Q&As for this proposal. This is a great opportunity for you to just reach out and say thank you to them and to show appreciation for the work that had to have gone into that coordination. I guarantee that there are very few people who are saying, hey, good job on answering 50 questions for these crazy bidders. They're going to remember that, and that's going to build goodwill, and it's going to give you a leg up when you go to request your debrief. Next piece of advice is to send a structured request. So instead of just firing off an email and asking for a debrief, ask for 3 to 5 questions that you'd like answered, or ask for a debrief to discuss something specific like our technical approach or our portfolio, or did we propose the right team? Giving structure and focus helps to make the task seem less like a burden and something more manageable. It kind of removes that ambiguity, and so the client will then feel like they can check this off. In that same vein, we want to provide an easy avenue for feedback, right? If we make it as easy as possible for the client to respond, they're more likely to respond to us. So we can ask for feedback via email, via phone call, via an in-person meeting. We can set up an online survey. These are all options for collecting feedback, and giving the client that option will make it more likely for them to return that feedback to you. Finally, don't be afraid to follow up multiple times to request feedback, but do so respectfully and considerately. Next question is, what is the recommended post-submission debrief process? What does this look like for you? First off, for me, the post-submission process looks different for all of my clients, so I don't really have a standardized process, but I do have a recommended general approach that you can adjust to fit your needs. First off, I suggest scheduling an internal debrief with your proposal team pretty quickly after the proposal is submitted, like before you even have award information, shortlist information, or anything like that. You want to include everyone involved in the proposal development and decision-making process in this so that you can discuss the strengths and weaknesses of the proposal, including content and formatting and messaging, and alignment with the client's requirements and preferences. You want to reflect on the overall process and discuss any challenges, bottlenecks, or areas where the process could be streamlined or improved for future proposals. Never forget to recognize what went well also. I know it can be difficult to get everyone on board with this, especially with more meetings. So you might consider a survey or a form or an email, something just to capture insights, lessons learned from proposals. And you don't have to do this for every single pursuit, right? If you are doing 10 proposals a month, you don't want 10 extra meetings a month, right? Pick the big ones, pick the challenging ones, pick the new ones, right? If you went after something in a new sector or after a new client, you want to debrief those and see how it went and then how you can improve. The point of this internal meeting is to start setting benchmarks for improvement and to start looking for actionable items and recommendations for improving your proposals in the future. You likely won't have client debrief feedback yet. You might not even have award information yet, but it's still important to discuss these lessons learned after a proposal submission, after a small cool down period, but before everyone forgets what happens, right? Like, we have to capture our lessons learned before they're out of our minds and we're on to the next thing. Once you do receive that client feedback, though, schedule a follow-up debrief or some sort of communication, maybe a chat, maybe an email thread, to review and discuss that feedback, and then compare those client perspectives to your internal assessments and see if there are areas that align or if there's places where you diverge, right? And then based on all of these insights, you're going to create action items and recommendations for improving your process. You're going to assign responsibilities for implementing these action items and establish timelines for completing them. So if that's updating content or doing a better debrief with your sales team to get insights for your proposals, you're going to have specific targets and milestones for incorporating those into your process moving forward. The next question is, what is the best way to sell your firm once you have the chance to get in the room with the client? So most of my consulting work focuses on proposals, but I do have the opportunity to support interviews on occasion, and I love them because I get to have fun here. But before I tell you how I have fun, my best advice for this phase is to remember that the messaging has now shifted. This is the number one place where I see firms fumble is you have already sold your firm. Like the client is already sold on your firm. They already know who you are, what your experience is. So it's time to really focus on what you can do for them. That means that you keep your introductions short and sweet and you dive straight into your understanding of the project. Right? That's strategy 101. Marketers know this. You're aligning client challenges with your experience and communicating a clear benefit. Once you have this messaging down, that's where you get to have fun. Right? Focus on creating an impactful presentation. Remember that the selection committee is probably sitting through multiple presentations in one day. And honestly, no one wants to do that. I don't like sitting through back-to-back meetings. You don't like sitting through back-to-back meetings. Your client doesn't like sitting through back-to-back meetings. So what we can do to make these presentations less painful is to create engaging and interactive presentations, right? Invite the client to participate somehow. Maybe you do a mini programming session where you have the selection committee shout out their wish list of items and you write it up on a board. Or break up your slide decks with some short video clips to give their brains a break. Really great example of this, I had a team interviewing for a renovation project at a really famous film location, Hollywood film location. And I decided to have fun with it. And so I found a bunch of video clips from blockbuster movies that were filmed at this location, and I used them throughout the interview to kind of break things up. And so you saw these like superheroes flying across the presentation every now and again. And it got the selection committee, like they were smiling, they were laughing. The interview team, my team, started to have fun with it. And, they're like, we're going to come in and we're going to be the hero of the day. They kind of played off the clips and it just created this really great camaraderie between the clients and the team. And it was fun. And you could tell that the tone shifted once we did that. So be creative, have fun. That's the best thing you can do in an interview. Next question is, do you have suggestions of strategies for marketing professionals to deal with pushback from technical staff who aren't on board with the tell a story approach? Technical staff are really, really good at what they do. They are really, really not good at what we do. In fact, they don't always understand what we do. And so sometimes we have to create parallels for them to understand it. And sometimes we have to get really creative with this. And the way that I do that is by using examples outside of the industry, something that anybody can relate to. In this case, I might use purchasing a phone as an example for conveying the storytelling strategy, right? Because everyone has a phone. So I would ask your technical staff what phone they have and why they bought that phone. Because all phones do the same thing, right? You can send text messages, you can make phone calls, you can surf the internet, you can download apps, you can take pictures. All of them do this, right? But there's a reason, and I guarantee there is a strong emotional reason behind why someone has an iPhone or a Samsung or a Google Pixel or whatever it is, right? That is storytelling. Apple, Samsung, Google, they've all sold their products based on a lifestyle, based on the story that the phone in your pocket tells. If they all tried to sell on, we excel at sending text messages and making phone calls, no one would care. It's the same thing as saying, we excel at meeting project budgets and schedules. All of the teams can do that. What differentiates you is the story behind it and the motion behind it, right? You know this as a marketer. We need to convey that to our subject matter experts, to our technical teams in terms that they understand. And our last question is, what is the most common mistake in proposals? This is a big question. There are two actually that I want to cover. The number one most common mistake that I see in proposals is failing to tailor your content to the client's specific needs, wants, goals, preferences. We might think that we are tailoring our content when we update the client name and the project name within our boilerplate, but there's kind of a trap there, right? And this is a one-size-fits-all approach if we don't do it correctly. So what we really want to be doing is thoroughly understanding the client's needs, their objectives, their challenges, and then demonstrating exactly how our capabilities, expertise, and solutions align with those needs, right? This is not easy. This is why we are marketers, right? This requires lots of research and insight into the client. This requires lots of context about the project. And it requires us being able to work with our teams to extract those insights and then make them actionable within our proposal. The second most common issue I see in proposals mistake is not giving enough time and not properly reviewing proposals, right? So what I see a lot is that a proposal will go through a handful of informal reviews with the proposal team and like whoever the technical lead is, maybe it's the project manager. And then 2 or 3 days before it's due, it goes out to like the broad team, senior leadership gets to look at it, and all of a sudden there's like 1,000 edits that come in and we have to change everything. That is a disaster. Sending drafts out into the world without specific instructions is asking for trouble, right? By the time it gets to leadership, they shouldn't be looking for things like spelling and grammatical errors. They should be checking that the fee is correct and the overall strategy is aligned, right? The staffing is good. And that's the things that need to happen earlier than 3 days before the proposal is due. So I recommend setting up structured reviews, baking them into your proposal process, making sure when your draft goes out, everyone knows exactly what they're supposed to be looking for so they don't get distracted by anything else. And reviews are becoming more important than ever, especially with this kind of uptick in AI-generated content. We have to proof everything. The number of narratives that I have been receiving recently from subject matter experts and technical staff who are suddenly really good writers is kind of amazing. But I have to go through and change the tone of voice. I have to help it match the rest of the proposal. I have to fact check it. And so we need more time for reviews to do things like that. And so I anticipate this becoming even more concerning as we move forward into this new digital world. I hope that answered all of your questions. Thank you for asking them. Keep them coming. I will be here with Open Asset to answer as many as we can.